All right, YouTube. I am back with 5 things I have completed lately, and to be honest, I have another stack of 5 things waiting in the queue to go next. All of a sudden, it was just like bunch of stuff just all got done at the same time. Yeah, it's going to be a busy few days filming videos and such, but hey, I'm on vacation, so who cares? First up, the 5th and final book of the Dragonwatch series called, I forget what it's called, Return of the Dragonslayers. Yes. So in this final volume of the Fablehaven / Dragonwatch series, everything's coming to a conclusion. Celebrant, the Dragon King, all the dragons are free. They're planning on a world takeover, and they're enacting the final stages of their plan to do so. Meanwhile, the Sorensen kids, Seth and Kendra, are they're still split up and they're off doing their own things. Kendra is supposed to be trying to track down the fabled Dragonslayers to help in the war against the dragons, but she gets distracted when her boyfriend, Bracken, is captured by the evil unicorn Ronadin, who has taken over the fairy realm. So she actually tries to go and rescue him. In the process, setting her back a little, but ultimately gaining her own freedom to pursue killing Celebrant, because that's kind of what we learn in this book is Celebrant, the King of the Dragons, dying is pretty much in everybody's best interest, whether they're evil or good or whatever, right? So she's eventually let go, and she goes on the trail of finding these Dragon Slayers, and she has success. Although some of them do perish along the way, she does have some success in rousing some of them. Meanwhile, Seth has made the deal with the singing sisters, or whatever they are, that he has to find all the pieces of the ether gem, the fabled ether gem, and put it back together, as that's an item that's very key in defeating Celebrant. And he has to fulfill this quest from the singing sisters because it's basically like a magical contract. So the parts of the ether gem, there's a jewel in the giant crown, in the dragon crown, and in the fairy crown, I believe it is. So he's got to go on a mission to get all those gems from those three different crowns, the dragon crown, which Celebrant is wearing, and also there's a couple different shards elsewhere that are parts of other artifacts that he's got to get. So this is their last ditch effort. They're up against the wall. They have a lot to do, and even if they enact these plans, they still feel like, how are we going to beat thousands of dragons, right? So with some of the Dragon Slayers coming back, with Seth possibly getting the ether gem back, will it be enough? It all takes place, it all culminates in a hidden kingdom of Salona, where the final battle with the dragons breaks down. And there's some little surprises and twists and turns along the way that steer the story toward its conclusion, and I'm not going to give too much away, because if you're a fan of fantasy and that sort of thing, especially if you don't mind going a little down the ladder to a younger reader's kind of level, not that these books are like the cat went to the store, right? Like, can you imagine a cat going to the store? That'd be fun. They're not like that young reader. They're actually really good stories, and that's what I like about the 9 to 12, 12 to 13 kind of range of books, is that they're not too dumbed down, but they're still written for kids, so they have a lot of imagination and creativity in them. And I really like that about these younger kind of readers' books. And this guy, Brandon Mull, that does the Fablehaven and the Dragonwatch series, as well as a few other series that he's done that I've read, his writing style is fantastic, and he's very engaging. These books are all very much page turners. You just want to keep going and keep going. So I really like the Fablehaven Dragonwatch series. It's a really good one. Next up, really looking forward to this, Star Wars, Shadow of the Sith. So this is a book that kind of links events between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, and it actually helps explain what happened to Rey as a little girl, how she kind of got abandoned on Jakku and everything like that. So it starts off, well, I don't know if it starts off, but fairly early into it, there's a brief cutscene about a kid living on Exegol. Do you get where we're going with this? Yes, Emperor Palpatine's son. The only thing is, Emperor Palpatine's son was a dud. He couldn't use the Force. So he was kind of like this kid on Exegol that just was kind of useless. So he just kind of slunk around and made sure not to get in anybody's way and stuff like that. Because he knew he was kind of useless. He didn't want to face anybody's wrath. And eventually, I think it was a servant on Exegol or something like that, who was the only person who was kind of nice to this kid, eventually helped this kid escape Exegol and out into the universe so he could forge his own path and get out from under the literal shadows of Exegol. The servant that freed him, his name was Dathan, or Dathan, I don't know how you say it. And so this kid, who didn't have a name really, decided to call himself by that same name because this guy helped him. So his name is Dathan, or Dathan. I guess if it was Nathan, it's spelled the same as Nathan but with a D, so I'm going to go with Dathan. So we get that little glimpse into life on Exegol for a young kid. And so basically there's two main characters outside of Dathan and his family. We have Lando Calrissian and Luke Skywalker. Luke is being tormented by nightmarish visions of planet Exegol, and he doesn't know what it means, but he knows that there's a lot of darkness there, this planet of lightning and evil, and they only keep getting worse. So we get a little bit of insight into at the start of Force Awakens, when Kylo Ren and his stormtroopers raid that little encampment where Lor San Tekka was residing. He's I forget what they're called. They're not Force sensitive, but they follow the ways of the Force in a way, and they're always collecting artifacts with regards to the Jedi and whatnot. And so Luke is actually kind of friends with this guy, and he talks to Lor about these visions he's having. So they try to decide what to do, and then Lor San Tekka actually says, "Well, I just heard from the scientists on this dig on Yoturba, I think the planet is, about some interesting stuff that they're going to find about a Jedi temple that we didn't realize was there." So they go to investigate this archaeological dig where there's actually some red kyber crystals uncovered, which have some evil properties to them. So obviously there was some sort of Sith relic, whether it was a holocron or a wayfinder or whatever, we don't know. But one of the archaeologists who comes into contact with them all of a sudden becomes fucking evil and shit and starts throwing other archaeologists around. So Luke is intrigued by, oh, okay, there's something going on here, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, Lando, he's at some bar, I forget where it is, on some space station, and he's playing some sabacc. And he's trying to get out of the game and whatever. He feels he's had enough. And in trying to extricate himself from this game, he overhears this thug named Ochi of Bestoon, talking about orders to kidnap this family, especially this young girl who's very important to somebody. Basically, it's a kidnapping, right? And he's overhearing these plans, and he's going, oh God, this doesn't sound good. And Lando's actually more sensitive to this because his actual young daughter disappeared as well. And he was trying to track her down forever and couldn't. So this situation takes a little more root in his heart because of the kind of the personal feelings it brings up. So he gets a few more details on it, how it has to relate with the Sith and stuff like that. So he contacts Luke, and Luke's like, what? Oh, that's crazy. So basically the rest of the book breaks down into how Luke and Lando go on a scavenger hunt to try and find Dathan, his wife Miramir, and their young daughter Rey, as they try to escape Ochi of Bestoon, as he is contacted by or contracted by the evil forces that rule Exegol to track this family down, because Palpatine wants his granddaughter, and he's not going to take no for an answer, right? So, and in the process of this, the Sith acolyte, her name is, oh God, what was her name? Kiza or something like that. She's the one who kind of contacts Ochi to go on this mission, and she wears this weird mask that's actually the consciousness of a former Sith named Darth Noctis or something like that, is inside the mask. It's like this writhing black mass inside the mask, and as soon as you put it on, you're basically become this persona of Darth Noctis. And she's the one that contracts Ochi Bastoon, and she also throws some curveballs at Luke and Lando as they're trying to track down this family. She obviously is trying to prevent them from honing in on Ochi's score, right? So it's just this race to try and save this family. And well, we all saw the recent trilogy and how it all ends, so we know what happens to these characters, to Rey and her family, so it should be no surprise as to what happens. But it's kind of, I like it when events are linked and you get some of the backstory of just some of the things you get a glimpse of in the movies, right? You get, oh, that's how that happened, blah blah blah, right? And so I always like to get those mysterious links kind of solved and added to my base of Star Wars knowledge. Not that I'm going to remember it for too long, but I can go back to the reference source if I need to, right? Next up, we got a couple movies. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. So, in this movie, it opens up, T'Challa, the Black Panther, is on his deathbed. He's really sick with some mysterious illness. Shuri, his sister, is desperately in the lab trying to find a way to save him. She's got this herb that she's trying to replicate that she thinks will do the trick, but before she can manage to get it done, T'Challa dies. Wakanda is in mourning. A little while later, at the United Nations, all the rest of the world starts throwing shade at Wakanda for hoarding their supply of vibranium, and the Queen stays pat. She's like, if we let you guys have it, it would be a mess, you know? So fuck off, right? Not long after that, what happens in the deep Atlantic Ocean, I think it is a U.S. expedition or whatever, stumbles upon a substantial pocket of vibranium on the ocean's floor. And but mysteriously, this team is dispatched by something underwater, and everything goes awry. Not long afterwards, this person is able to invade Wakanda underwater and confront the Wakandans and Shuri and the Queen. His name is Namor, and he rules an underwater kingdom called I can't remember the name now. And he's proposing an alliance between Wakanda and his kingdom to team up together, keep the supply of vibranium all together, and use it to, take on the rest of the world. Obviously, Shuri's like, no, that's not going to happen. And the alternative is, well, we come in and we fuck you up and we take your vibranium, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? And he actually offers to take Shuri to his kingdom to show her, the what it's like down there. And he does that. And he also takes the scientist, a young girl from some university in the States, who designed the rig that was underwater that detected the vibranium. Namor wants her killed, basically, because she created this thing that's fucking with his mojo, right? So yeah, Namor is basically just bitter at the surface world, and if Wakanda doesn't want to team up with him to keep the vibranium between them, Wakanda's going down too. So it's just this kind of stalemate between the two that eventually culminates in a big battle at sea. And Shuri has to think of a way to weaken Namor, because he's very powerful, and especially when he's in and around water. Him and his people living underwater as underwater beings, the water is their power source, sort of thing. So she has to concoct a way to take the fight to Namor and removing him from that situation so she can weaken him. And that's kind of how the movie ends, in this big sea battle. And there's a couple of surprises along the way. Shuri learns that T'Challa's love interest, Nakia, who moved to Haiti a while back, actually had a son with T'Challa, whose name is T'Challa as well. So she was sure, he was like, oh my god, I got a nephew, he's, you know, he's my brother's son, right? And then also that Namor has something up his sleeve after the dust has settled on the battle. This isn't over, let's just say that. So we may be seeing another Black Panther movie coming up, or we may be seeing something that maybe Namor and his people get their own movie, who knows. But yeah, the story's not done, not yet. Next up, finally got around to seeing Black Adam. And that Wakanda Forever was a 2022 movie, as is this same year. So in Black Adam, I think it was 2600 BC or something like that, there was a kingdom called Kandak, something like that, who had this ruler who was kind of evil, and he wanted to create this crown that would make him all-powerfully evil. He basically enslaved Kandak's population to mine the materials he needs for this magical crown. And there was this young kid that stood up and says, we can't let him get away with this. We need to unite. We need to take the fight back to this guy and free ourselves and free our land. And eventually the wizards that we see in the Shazam movie, that Council of Wizards, they see this going on and they're like, yeah, we need a hero. Bam! Shazam! This little kid gains the power of Shazam. He becomes a protector, a great protector of Kandak, and ousts this evil king. Now, in current times, what happens is Kandak is in trouble. It's basically being run by this, they're called Intergang or something like that, but it's basically a crime syndicate running Kandak, and once again all the people there are oppressed, and it's shitty conditions, and life there isn't good. There is an archaeologist named what's her name? Starts with an A. Adriana, something like that. Who is actually on a mission with her brother and their two kind of confederates to find this crown that the evil king many thousands of years ago was using to gain power there. And she's on a mission to find it and keep it away from anybody, right? She's gotten the drop on. Some other people are after it, and they kind of force her to read like an inscription or something around it, and that summons the great protector of Kandak from thousands of years ago, who kind of went dormant after ousting that king thousands of years ago. And the only problem is this guy's not quite a hero. He doesn't really care who he hurts and how much destruction he causes. Now, he does get rid of all the gangs, but he also does a bunch of other shit, bad shit as well, that, you know, you can tell this guy, okay, he's not Superman, that's for sure, right? He's got an edge to him. So, and his name is Teth Adam, and Adriana's son, Amon, Teth Adam, who eventually names himself Black Adam, he gets knocked out, or he wears himself out or whatever, so he stays at their house. And Adriana's son, Amon, really takes a liking to him and keeps talking to him about, you can be a hero, you can be good, blah, blah, blah. And so it's kind of this wearing away of Black Adam, kind of like, I'm no hero. He keeps saying, I'm no hero, I'm no hero. But as the events of the movie progress and he deals with the threats that keep coming at him and these people that he kind of has become familiar with, he eventually becomes, you know, a little more like a hero and a little more like, oh, maybe I can be whatever I want, blah, blah, blah. And we learn along the way too that back in when that king was trying to get that crown back in the day, the little kid that gained the powers of Shazam and vanquished this evil king, he was hunted, and he kept having to turn back foes, and eventually passed his powers on to his father, Teth Adam, so he could deal with the threat. And immediately upon doing so, their attackers killed Teth Adam's son after he gave his powers away, and that sent Black Adam into a rage, and he eventually basically fucking destroyed everything in sight, and he even killed all but one of the wizards on the Wizard Council that granted his son originally the powers of Shazam. And this one last wizard kind of took those powers away, or maybe didn't take the powers away, but he imprisoned him, and that's where he's been all these years, these thousands of years, is basically imprisoned. So when Adriana read that inscription, she awakened him, and now he's on the loose again. But like I said, as events go along, Black Adam eventually becomes kind of more, oh, maybe I can be a hero. And there's some other factors that come into play. Amanda Waller, who is in charge of many things, including the Suicide Squad and all that stuff, she sends the Justice Society, which Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Cyclone, and Atom Smasher, she sends them to Kahndaq to bring Black Adam back and for his surrender and stuff like that. So it's also his interaction with these actual heroes. And at first they butt heads, of course, and whatever, but as they have to face common enemies and stuff like that, as the movie progresses, you know, Black Adam kind of adjusts, and eventually, in the end, of course, he becomes a good guy. Now, just how good he's gonna be, we don't know, but there's a mid-credit scene or whatever where people obviously aren't trusting him totally, because they send Superman over to Kahndaq to have a bit of a powwow with Black Adam about what his role might be there, that sort of thing. So could that be setting up a Black Adam versus Superman movie? I'd watch it, and I'd be all in on Black Adam. I'm not a big Superman guy. I find him too fucking, I'm perfect, I'm good, everything's good, you know, fuck. Gotta have a little bit of edge, Last up, I love this series, Andor. This takes place, I think, 5 years before the events of Rogue One that leads into A New Hope. Cassian Andor is on some planet, I can't remember what, to start off the series, and he is he's in a bar or something like that, asking as to the whereabouts of his sister. So we learn that, oh, okay, maybe his sister's gone missing, whatever, and he doesn't have any luck. And as he's making his way back to leave the planet or go back to wherever he's staying, whatever, a couple of corporate, like, security guards kind of accost kind of accost him, and he's into some shady stuff, so he doesn't want to be caught. So there's a bit of a struggle, and one of the guards accidentally is killed, and the other guard's like, what the fuck? Oh, don't kill me, man. And then Andor's like, well, what other choice do I have? Right? He's like ice cold sometimes. I love it. So then Andor flees, and he goes back to his home planet, where he's staying, and I forget what the name of it is. And the Empire, in the meantime, get wind of this, and they start looking into it, and they kind of get a bit of a summary on who they're looking for, although they don't know too much. They know they're after Andor, sort of thing, right? When he gets back to his home planet, he's obtained some sort of imperial device on a starship that he wants to fence. So he contacts his friend at home. Her name is Bix, and she sets up a meeting with the buyer. And this buyer meets him at this warehouse or whatever, and they're kind of talking about the deal and stuff like that. They're being a little bit cagey, but soon enough they don't have any time, because the Empire is on to them, and they're attacking the facility. And this guy offers Andor a way out, a partnership, a job, so to speak. And this guy's name is Luthen, and he actually has a pretty significant role in the Rebel Alliance. And so he actually takes Andor back with him, and then sends him to this other world to meet up with this other team who are planning a bit of a heist. So when he gets to this next world, the heist is that there's this Imperial facility that's kind of at this dam on this kind of really rural, rugged planet, and it's a facility where they keep a lot of a portion of the Imperial bankroll. So there's just a vault filled with thousands and millions of Imperial credits. And of course, the rebellion, what does it need? It needs ships, it needs people, it needs resources, it needs money for all those things, right? So that's the plan. There's, I think, the team he meets up with, there's about 5, 6, maybe 7 other people who have been planning this for a long time, and they're a little sus about why is this new guy here all of a sudden, right? But anyways, they go for it. They pull it off. There are some casualties. There's some hiccups along the way, but they pull it off. They get the credits, and then afterwards, Andor kind of scoots on it, right? And as he kind of flees and goes to this kind of vacation planet to kind of hide out for a while, he just randomly gets arrested for basically no reason at all. The Empire's just arresting people because they need slave labor. So he gets arrested, and then he goes to this other planet where the Imperials are they're making parts for something. I'm assuming some starships probably. So he gets put into this facility where it's really controlled, it's really contained. There's no hope of escape, and he's stuck there for a while. But things become more and more grim there. They're killing inmates off for no reason, and he's like talking to his supervisor. It's like, dude, we need to stage an escape. Do you think any of us are ever gonna get out of here alive? Like, so finally, after hearing some stuff about people dying on purpose, being killed, they're like, okay, they staged this kind of this revolt and break out of the prison. And eventually after that, he goes home after he's learned his mother has died, and her speech there, her post-death speech, they have a really strong funeral custom on his home planet. Kind of incites a riot on his home planet with the Imperial presence there, and there's a big kind of battle to end the series. And then all this while, you see the inner workings of the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau, and the personnel they have there that are tracking down Andor and what he's been up to, and trying to take him in and stop, and linking all these different thefts and stuff like that to an organized rebel alliance. They're not taking it very seriously. It's like one-off things, and this one agent's like, no, these are all linked. This is organized. This is not something to be taken lightly. So that, combined with Andor, is kind of their main focus at the ISB. And then also, one of the coolest aspects of it is Mon Mothma, actually one of the big figureheads of the Rebel Alliance. We get a lot of insight into how she fits into the whole starting of the rebellion and stuff, as there's a lot of stuff takes place on Coruscant, where she's trying to organize the rebellion, fund it, while still staying out of suspicion and staying alive. Her husband doesn't know anything about it, and she can't trust him with that kind of info. And she's in regular contact with that Luthen guy that pulled Andor off the planet and set him up with that job. And so we see a lot of the workings of both the ISB, but also on the other side, the Rebel Alliance, and how they kind of did their business, right? So I thought it was a really interesting series. It was gritty. It was slow paced, but not in a bad way sometimes, until there was a big sequence of action. And it was a really good character builder and gap filler for some of the in-between movie events. And yeah, the best thing to say is that it fits right in with Rogue One, because I found Rogue One, it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies, but I found it so different in that how gritty and earthy it was. This Andor series, it really goes hand in hand with that movie. They really complement each other well. They're done very similarly. And yeah, I thought Andor was just going to be like a one-off season sort of thing, but they are making a second season, because it does end on a cliffhanger. So I was like, what? That's how it ends? What the fuck? And then, there's a season 2 coming. So I was like, yes. But anyways, I've rambled on for long enough, and I've got a lot more Star Wars series to watch. So let me go to get to work on that as soon as I can. Toodles. Meow.